Welcome to the Prodigal and the Priest podcast, a podcast about faith, sports, and two friends from different cultures. Here are your hosts, Joey Scansella and Father Paul Bechter.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Prodigal and the Priest and me. This is our question edition of the podcast where Father Paul and myself get to answer questions, get to discuss things, get to make fun of one another, all of those fun things for 2021. How you doing?
Doing good, man.
Good. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's start it off. Question 1 comes from Nicole. What do you all think about loyalty in sports? For example, in football and baseball, they tend to keep people a long time. But in this era, especially of basketball, seems to have no allegiance. What are your all's thoughts?
Mercenaries. Sorry, finish the question.
No, that's it. What are your all's thoughts? I mean, look at the example of James Harden that we just had.
Yeah. Brooklyn Net tearing it up.
Yeah.
But just, kind of
but essentially
went on strike.
Yeah.
In Houston.
You just say, I don't want to. Could you imagine doing that?
I think Kawhi kind of started that. I know that LeBron, with his decision, really ushered in a new era of power for the players to choose where they wanted to go play in the NBA. But I think that Kawhi basically sitting out a year with this quad injury, which was sort of real, but also kind of.
Yeah, so if those don't know what we're talking about, back when Kawhi Leonard played for the San Antonio Spurs, there was this whole debate. Was he injured? Was he not? And and some people say he just didn't want to get hurt and play. He wanted to play somewhere else, so he just didn't want to play anymore. It is interesting, yeah, because you really have two situations. At least the LeBron one, it's he finished his contract.
Right.
Right now, though, you have the James Harden situation. For those listeners who don't know, is this guy who's played for the Houston Rockets, and he pretty much just threw a 35-year-old temper tantrum and said, I'm not playing.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm going to get out of shape. I'm going to, literally.
I'm going to sabotage this team until you get rid of me. And, he just, the power structure of the NBA, he has the power to do that, which is kind of an amazing thing. So I've heard a bunch of different takes on this stuff. My gut reaction is I like loyalty towards teams.
Yes.
Especially smaller market teams. I know that there are good reasons to go to LA and stuff for players and for marketing and everything. I get all that, but the thought that that Luka Doncic for the Mavs, right, could sign a supermax contract with the Mavs at some point and then just decide he doesn't want to be here anymore because he wants to be somewhere where, say he's very afraid of tornadoes or something and he wants to move to earthquake land instead.
Right.
It just seems like you're turning your back.
That was the best example. Not just he wanted to play somewhere else, but he's afraid of tornadoes and wants to move to Earth.
And my read so far on Luka is he seems kind of like a Dirk Nowitzki.
I mean,
I sure hope. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but he seems really happy here, and I as far as basketball goes, I want more than anything for him to be happy and stay here because he's an incredible player and brings so much to the team. And
yeah, and there's something to be said that there's a reason people love Dirk so much, and I think it's that, not that if he didn't, if he would have gone to the Lakers, people in LA would have loved him for a year or two, but there was something that just, that whole Mavs fan for life, and
I like the hometown roots thing, even if it's not your hometown per se.
I mean, as much shade as I throw at him for his playing career, I respect Tony Romo for retiring as a Cowboy. Because he could have probably, don't get me wrong, his back was about to break and he was about to be crippled for life.
Why would you throw shade at Tony for his playing career?
I'm not going to walk into that ambush. All I'm going to say is people make it like he was Dan Marino and he was not. Okay. So, but you know what I mean? I had respect for him being I think he knew, hey, I've gained the respect of Cowboys fan. Like, I want to end as a Cowboy.
Yeah.
I think there was something valuable there about his allegiance.
There is a flip side to this, which I can see. Like, okay, these are the guys that everyone's there to watch. Shouldn't they have more power and say in where they're going? And in basketball, they're just starting to have that, but in other sports, like, you can't do this in the same way. A little bit in football now, right? Mm-hmm. Deshaun Watson,
yeah.
Like, we're starting to see stuff like that trickle down from basketball to other sports, but should that be kind of the norm, that players have a lot more say? Because otherwise it turns into, they're sort of being used by this big corporation kind of thing, and like I can kind of see that.
Mm-hmm.
But the gut for me is like loyalty to your team.
Yeah.
I don't know what team sports are about if you don't have that, even on this like superstar pro level.
I mean, but flip it to the church, and I'm not going to ask you for any names, but could you imagine, like, just being mad that you were assigned to St. Anne's and throwing kind of a temper tantrum that I don't want to be here?
Yeah.
And have the bishop be like, I'm unhappy that I'm here. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure of it. And I don't know it for a fact, but you got to mention it, but I'm sure of it. And I will say no more. But, right, that, like, you're just so kind of...
No, that's an interesting thing. So, like, different dioceses will do different things. Different bishops will handle personnel moves in different ways, assignments and stuff. So far, here at Dallas, the way it has looked has been kind of like we're thinking this, what do you think? And so, like,
So you get some input.
Like, I felt like I had input. I don't know if I was like...
Every other priest is like, wait, what? He got to...
No, it felt like input, but it wasn't where do you want to go? It was, we're thinking here, what do you think? Do you have any objections? And I'm sure that they would have heard me out and maybe been like, that's not a reasonable objection. What's wrong with you? But if I had, if they assigned me to somewhere that was primarily Spanish speaking and I was like, I'm just not good enough at Spanish to be the only priest at this parish, like,
right.
I think
they
would
valid.
hear that. Or if you're like, my health isn't what it seems and it's more fragile and I think that place is too big. Like, I think it's in everyone's best interest to hear that.
True.
So yeah, but if if they were like, you are being assigned here, no input, and then I threw a temper tantrum and went on like strike.
Yeah, like sabbatical.
And just got really fat in protest.
You just pulled a James Harden towards the bishop. You're like, go ahead, move me. They'd be like, great, you're no longer a priest.
I don't know what they would. Yeah, I don't know what they would do, but I doubt that they would just capitulate to my every demand. And
that's why I think churches should have a draft. With the second pick overall, we select this priest as
who
our.
At the parish gets to choose.
I mean, probably the youth minister.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes the sense. Okay, next question. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate your question. Thor, Father Paul.
Yes.
I'm going to say /Joey, even though it wasn't mentioned. Father Paul, have you ever done or witnessed an exorcism? As well, could you give some insight into what they actually are versus what they are perceived to be?
Yeah.
I'm gonna boom, hot take. Yes, you have, because during the RCIA scrutinies, those are minor exorcisms.
That's true.
Little loophole,
yeah.
But okay.
Minor exorcisms. There's minor exorcisms involved in the baptismal rite.
Exactly. Just wanted to toss those out.
Yes,
that I'm like, yeah. Loopholes, love them.
Yeah,
okay.
Major exorcisms I've not been a part of.
Yeah. So take it 2 steps at a time. You ever witness or been a part of major exorcism?
No.
As well, could you give some insight? So it's not like, let's just put it out on the table. It's not like watching like the exorcism of Emily Rose.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, everything I've heard is it's not. It makes sense. Like, you want to make a movie interesting or captivating or terrifying or whatever, and reality's different. As far as I understand, like the whole thing behind exorcisms is you receiving this delegation from the bishop to speak authoritatively to cast out these demons. And so it's a conjunction of like who you are as a priest, conform to Christ as high priest, and receiving the authority of the bishop to be able to speak with those authoritative words and cast out demons in this way. Like that's what it is. And I don't know if it's, it's probably not flashy like movies have it, but
there's some weird stuff they encounter.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, you're working with literally against the devil.
One thing I would say is always important to keep in mind is like, okay, I've not delved particularly deep into this subject, and I think that's a healthy thing, because you can get a morbid curiosity of the occult and all this stuff. But everything I've heard from exorcists or people who have done stuff like that is like the sacraments are 1 billion times more powerful than the rite of exorcism. Rite of exorcism is a tool that's useful, like a medicine in this specific circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
But it's trying to achieve a certain inner freedom to be able to pursue a life of sanctity and holiness steeped in the sacraments and in regular confession and mass attendance and that kind of stuff. So,
and there's usually teams in dioceses. Some dioceses have, some lay people are on the team. Actually, there's always a priest, of course. Yeah. And I don't know if this is official. Maybe you can shed some light. I heard that every diocese has an official person as the kind of exorcist of the diocese, and they're never named publicly.
Yeah, they're normally, because people have a fascination with stuff like this, and I think that's the reason to keep them anonymous is like, look, if there's a real need, you contact the diocese and they'll figure out if your need is actually legitimate, and then they'll put you in touch with the person. But like, you don't need to like dox the exorcist to get his information out there and have a whole bunch of people, some with good intentions but misled, and others with bad intentions.
Right. And what
trying to contact him. So,
and what I've read too, just a little bit in the studies I've done and heard, is really the exorcist is coming in to say, what the catechism talks about. Like, are we actually talking about complete, like, are we talking about oppression? Are we talking about obsession? Or are we talking about like a full, like.
Yeah, the other word that I can't think of either.
That I'm blanking on.
Possession.
Possession, thank you. I'm like, wait. It's an eshin. It's an eshin.
I knew that you were looking for me to
I was like, come on, help me out.
Help me out. Just going to let you sit there.
No, but the catechism talks about that because we all open ourselves up to a certain amount of, obsession with certain things, of sin and different things like that. And then we can also open ourselves to a certain amount with oppression of being like, well, when we enter in towards more sin, right? And then, obviously it doesn't just go boom, 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 quick, and then possession. But that's what they're really evaluating. And the only thing I've also heard is, 9 times out of 10, when they go visit someone or that, it is not, it's serious, but it's not actually like, we're not talking about full possession.
Yeah. That's what I've heard too.
Yeah. So we'll leave it at that. Next, Landon, perfect. This is about the Bible for the Bible guy.
Bring it.
Landon, ready. How do we know the Bible is not fiction and is a reliable source?
Okay. Well, so the Bible is a library of books. So
some are fictional, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the first thing is like the Bible has only been a book bound in a cover for, let's say, 500 years, because that's when the printing press was invented. And before that, it was a codex. Before that, it was a bunch of scrolls. The Bible is 72, 73. Oh, gosh, I'm the Bible guy. I'm supposed to know
Are you
that.
kidding me?
I always get this confused. It's 73.
I am in shock right now.
I always get it confused.
You have like a doctorate in Bible stuff,
Sort
pretty
of.
much.
Yeah,
yeah,
not really
yeah,
a doctorate, but
close.
A thing.
A thing. Did you just really
license.
question if there's 73 books in the Bible?
72 is such a nice number, though.
Yeah, I always think about it though as like
Apostles.
66 is without the 7 Catholic books, and that's why I'm like 66 is always a danger number, getting close to, and so I'm like, yeah, plus 7. That's how I always remember. Go ahead.
Okay, so you got all these books, and they're written across a very massive stretch of history. It's easiest to start with the Gospels and say, are the Gospels historical? And there are many, many different reasons to say yes. One reason is that they claim to be eyewitness testimony. And the 4 different Gospels, which all claim to be eyewitness testimony, agree in massive sweep of the details, and there's minor disagreements. That's one. Secondly, the manuscript tradition of these events is quite interesting. So the New Testament writings in general, and the letters of Paul and the Gospels in particular, like, you have a massive amount of sort of minor variations in spelling and syntax, and sometimes synonyms and different words and stuff in this manuscript tradition, but they all essentially tell the same story, which I think is very important. That the manuscript tradition itself points back and agrees substantially that these are the things that are happening. We have other Gospels which the church early on said, nope, these are not. They don't reflect our faith. And normally it was because they started to sound like fiction and say weird things under the influence of Gnosticism and other stuff. So you have that. You have other.
I feel like I see in your face just you are so overwhelmed right now by this question. Not overwhelmed. It's just so deep. It's not easy.
It's a common question. I just want to do it justice in this forum. So you also have like the question. Okay, did Jesus exist? And you have plenty of non-biblical references to this guy named Jesus. Josephus, who was an ancient historian who was contemporary with Christ, mentions him. He wrote histories, like something called the Jewish Wars and the Jewish Antiquities, these 2 very important historical books. So you have Josephus. On the one hand, you have Suetonius, also mentions a certain Chrestus, which the way you pronounce things, it's the same. Tacitus also. I'm working kind of off the top of my head. So you have these Greco-Roman historians who say, this was a thing. There was this guy. They don't believe that he was the Messiah, but they say, here's this guy, and he had these followers. You have the testimony of his followers who both write this stuff down and say, we are eyewitnesses to this, and who give their life as martyrs in testimony to the truth of these events. They have nothing to gain by giving their life in this way. They're not furthering a political cause. They're not becoming martyrs for this political thing. Like, they're martyrs, in testimony to someone who was crucified as a criminal rising from the dead. Like, if it's not real, who cares?
Right.
Why would you give your life for it? St. Paul says, if this is not real, our faith is in vain. All of it's in vain. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So you have their witness. You have the extra biblical witness to the reality of this person, Jesus. You have the internal evidence, which is just, does this thing seem like it's a trustworthy account that I'm reading? Does it seem realistic or not? So that's all for the Gospels and stuff. I don't know. The Old Testament is a much bigger question because it's like it's written across a very large breadth of time and undergoes multiple revisions. And so sometimes you're looking for like historical kernels. Does this match up with like what we know from archaeology? Other times, it presents itself as very historical, like in the books of Kings and the books of Samuel. Especially in the books of Kings, they'll make reference to archival sources that they're using. And so to say this is fiction is to say, I think that they are lying to me, that's a big claim, and you have to have evidence to make a claim like that.
Yeah. So what would you say? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And other books are written in a way which is not presenting itself as like a history, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, but more as a collection of poetry or of wisdom sayings, like the book of Proverbs, for instance, book of Psalms. So there's a wide variety of literature in the library of books that is the Bible. But normally when people ask that question, they're talking about the Gospels, and the Gospels are historical. There are many, many good reasons for thinking so. Mm-hmm. And it's only sort of the secular atheism of our culture and like the History Channel in particular, which will trot out something trying to, scandalize Christians and say like, none of this happened or this wasn't real or something. And they trot the same thing every year around Easter and around Christmas. And
like the Gospel of Judas things.
Yeah,
and
it's just
like
they're
that,
making garbage claims. Like they're not making good claims.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a long answer to a short question, but it's a good question.
Yeah, and I think it can go in a lot of ways. I hear people say
Can I give a follow-up book recommendation?
Please.
The Case for Jesus by Brant Petrie. Short little book, very well done, good research. Says things that you don't hear just in sort of the common answers to this, and I think it's great. The Case for Jesus, Brant Petrie.
We had to read that in one of my classes. I don't know which one,
really?
But yeah, I've read it. So
you've read a surprising amount of books.
I'm not really sure how to take that comment, so we'll just move on. No, the one point I wanted to say was, I think a lot of people struggle, not so much even believing, was that story true or not? Just, okay, this is inspired by the Holy Spirit, but, how do I really trust that the right books were put in and not? I think, I love that quote from, I know it's in the Catechism. I don't know what original document it's from, but we venerate the Word of God in the same way we venerate the body of Christ.
Sacrosanctum Concilium from Vatican II, and so definitely in the Catechism.
I mean, I think it's just a struggle for people to be like, this is so important. I hear it's important. Did everybody have their ducks in a row when they put it together?
The whole thing, just, I guess, sort of
rebuttal
appendix to this, but like the whole thing is apostolic tradition.
Yep.
Like they were eyewitnesses, and then they hand it down to their successors, who are the bishops, and then they hand it down, and it's the whole life of the church that they're handing down, which includes the books that you use in the liturgy, which, like, that's really the main criterion for the early church determining which books of the New Testament are scriptural and which are not.
Right.
Is these are the ones we've been using in the liturgy because these are the ones that reflect our faith. That other one, not so sure. Let's look closer. No, definitely not. Or, yeah, actually it is.
Yeah.
But it starts with the use in the liturgy, which is something that the church receives through this tradition. Tradition means handing down.
Yep.
Traditio, tradere in Latin. What's the Greek word? I don't remember.
Yeah. I didn't read that in a book.
Yeah, para something. Paradidomi. Anyway, I think that's right. Paradothe. Yeah, okay. I'm embarrassing myself here. So, yeah, we believe it.
Yeah.
And we believe that it's this and not another.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the apostolic tradition.
Good stuff.
That this comes from the apostles.
Okay.
Through their successors.
I want this question to be last but not least because I know some of you listen to our other Wednesday edition of the podcast, which is more just topics. We've gotten this question a lot just in general and wanted to be able to address it, but in case you've already heard it, we wanted to be the last one in case you don't want to listen to the answer again, and that is... The question we've been getting a lot is, as a faithful Catholic, I'm very concerned about the COVID-19 vaccine and its use, aborted fetus back from the 1960s. We'll explain all that. But is it moral to take this vaccine?
Yeah. So short answer is yes.
Yeah.
And the church has spoken definitively that yes, it is moral to take it, and says that it can't even be for the common good that one takes it, but you're also not required to take it if it goes against your conscience. And it says, yes, it is moral, and in a document from the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, otherwise known as the CDF, they explain their reasoning, and it's good reasoning. A key paragraph: the fundamental reason for considering the use of these vaccines morally illicit is the kind of cooperation in evil in the procured abortion from which these cell lines originate is, on the part of those making use of the resulting vaccines, remote. That's a long sentence, but basically it's saying, like, there is some cooperation in evil here, right? But it is a passive, so not an active, material as opposed to formal, and remote as opposed to proximate cooperation. And that kind of cooperation, when there is a grave reason for doing the thing, does not prevent us from doing the thing. So that's their basic reasoning, and it's good. I'm no, vaccine developer. Never been accused of that.
Nope.
But I did a little reading on like the science of it, and like the way even those cell lines are used is not such that like you are receiving into your body somehow through this vaccine something directly related to
an abortion in 1960.
Yeah. That's not the way that cell line was used in this.
Yep.
Otherwise, it would be formal cooperation, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the main point. You can read the rest of it. There's also summaries of it. You just search for, vaccine, Vatican, CDF. Pope Francis and Pope Benedict also got it, which I think is important for people to know. There's that. The church seems to be very clear, and I think has given good reasoning in this CDF document as to why the vaccine is licit to take.
Yeah. There you go. Hey, those are some great questions. We're good at our job. You know that? So, hey, we want your questions. We want more of them. prodigalandthepriest@gmail.com or stannparish.org/PTP. We love you so much, and thank you for your support of the show and all we do. We missed you. happy to go into 2021 with some more questions. On behalf of Joey Scansella, Father Paul Bechter, we say take care.
God bless.